And we are live! Friday Night Feel! I always get so excited! Yay! Welcome to Friday Night Feels, everyone. I am licensed mental health counselor and certified life coach Patrick Monette. And this is Friday Night Feels, which is a show that focuses on men and relationships, health, love, fulfillment, as well as mental health, well-being, and much more. The focus of the show is to create connection and to be able to explore everyday issues that affect us all and how to be the healthiest versions of ourselves that we can be. Each show, I invite a guest to join me to discuss their experiences with healing, wellness, and personal development. My guest this week is Kay Burnham. So, Kay, welcome to Friday Night Feels.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I was reading, well, I'm going to share your bio because I just feel just so exciting. So Kay has spent 30 years in the live entertainment industry, working her way up the leadership ladder until she was a vice president overseeing multiple areas with over 450 staff and volunteer. After her world came crashing down around her, she started having panic attacks. Then she began a journey to understand what creating a life-work balance means and discovering the tools that can allow anyone to build a resiliency, self-awareness, and confidence required to create a joyful and balanced life. Now she uses her story as a cautionary tale to help others avoid burnout, deal with grief, and live with balanced life. So we're so excited you're here. And I just have to say, it takes my breath away even thinking of 450 people of managing that. And that's just incredible on its own. So where would you like to dig in? Where does your story begin?
Wow. Well, my story actually begins with a series of life-altering events. I had 6 in the span of a year, any one of which could have sent someone into for mental health help.
Right.
My father was diagnosed with stage 4 skin cancer wrapped around his esophagus.
Oh my gosh.
Shortly after that, my late husband was diagnosed with stage 4 aggressive prostate cancer at the age of 43.
Wow.
After that, my company reorganized and it was great. I became a full vice president, but that was a lot more responsibility, a lot of stuff to do.
Right.
And then my father suddenly and unexpectedly, sort of traumatically, passed away from what I believe was a side effect of one of his treatments.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And finally, a coworker in her mid-30s went to an off-site rehearsal for a different company that she was the company manager for, and she collapsed and never came back to us.
Oh my gosh.
So that triggered panic attacks, which I did not realize were panic attacks.
Right.
I wanted to get out of wherever I was at that moment.
Right. And then what happened then?
Well, I was in crisis, so I reached out to a licensed mental health therapist to get me back in a state where I could actually figure out how to deal with my life. And it was one of the things that she asked me in a very early session. She said, "Have you ever tried meditation?" And someone ever ask you a question where it's kind of like you want to smack yourself on the head and go, like, why didn't I think of that? Like, what? I'd started learning to meditate at 5 years old.
Really?
Yes, back in the 70s. My parents found a new age church, and I started learning to meditate. And so I went back to my roots. And at the time, I downloaded the 2 or 3 apps that were available for meditation and started to explore it. And that led me to mindfulness and to really start digging in deep with what that was and all of the attitudes around it and how it could be applied in life. And I like to say that mindfulness really did save my life.
Wow, that's amazing. And I just like to ask, if you don't mind, everyone has such a different definition of mindfulness. How do you define mindfulness for maybe someone who's listening who, because I'm just thinking we hear it a lot in pop culture, but it has such a historical, spiritual history. And I think it gets lost a little bit when it's used. So, I'm mindful, or be mindful of this. And how do you define it?
Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of become a buzzword, or I've heard people call it McMindfulness.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's mindfulness is how I define it is about being present in the moment, objectively and reactively. So it's about becoming the objective observer of your life,
hmm,
both internal and external life. And while there is, and I do always reference the spiritual component of it, there are very practical things about it.
mhm.
And it doesn't have to take a lot of time.
Right, right.
It's not necessarily about sitting down on a cushion for 20 or 30 minutes a day. Yes, that's great and has lots of benefits, but you don't have to practice it that way.
Hmm. Hmm. It's funny you mention that because one of the conversations I've had is that meditation sounds nice, but conceptually, we're like, I don't have time to go on a mountain to talk to a man about a goat or a loud, you know what I mean? Because we just see that in the
Yep.
movies, and it's sort of like, how do I? And I love reading your bio and sharing that because so many people live that fast-paced, busy, busy, busy. I was thinking about this as I was preparing for the show. It was just a really busy week myself, and I thought, what a great way to end the week, but to have a conversation about wellness and validating that this is common, but that there are ways that we can improve the way that we deal with it. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So you had the history of being 5 years old and learning how to meditate, and then all of these really intense traumatic experiences. I, I'm sure it wasn't a seamless thing where you just jumped into it. So and you had the two apps that help, and I always recommend different apps. I like things that are sort of like push and play.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
apps are so good with that. But uh, how did your journey go from that to what you're doing now?
So I started out going out onto we had an open plaza that you could be on. And I would go out on the plaza on my lunch break because I would started forcing myself to actually take breaks. And I would go out and I would just put my headphones on for 10 minutes. I'd find a short little guided meditation that would help me focus and pull me away from everything I'd been doing. And just because of who I am and sort of my natural tendencies and strengths is I have a deep love of learning.
Okay.
So as I started to see these benefits. I was like, okay, well, I want to learn more about this. I don't want to just sit here with an app and, pick things. I want to know what I'm doing. I want to
Mm,
understand more about this. So I'd read several of John Kabat-Zinn's books. He's really considered the father of modern mindfulness practices. Mindfulness-based stress reduction is his baby. And so I started reading the books, and then I started talking to other people and finding out who the experts were and reading their books and attending workshops and seminars. And then I actually decided to go back to school and get a second master's degree in psychology because
yay!
I wanted to know. I got it in industrial and organizational psychology because I'm a huge leadership person.
Right, right.
But I also wanted to understand, like, what was the science behind this? What was going on? How does this work? And then my curiosity led me to neuroscience. And so I started reading and studying Rick Hanson's work and how we can start to rewire the way we think and the way our brains operate. And I was at a conference. So then I started presenting at professional conferences instead of on what I did as a profession. I started taking mindfulness in and showing how my colleagues actually around the world could
Hmm.
be incorporating this into their day to help them. Because I'll tell you, live entertainment, and specifically I worked in ticketing, live
Oh,
event
wow.
ticketing. So that is very stressful.
Yes, I can only
Um,
imagine.
so I started presenting at conferences on it. And then there was one conference, I was talking with someone, and all of a sudden I just thought, I can have a bigger impact and help more people if I'm not tied to one company.
Okay.
So how do I do that? Okay, well, let me look at what I could do that would use the skills I have, the things I love, because one of the things I had realized was I was on a career path that maybe wasn't mine. It was one that society says, this is what a career path looks like. And so my next step was becoming an executive director or a CEO of an arts organization, something like that. And I looked around at the people in those jobs and thought, oh my God, no, I don't want that stress. I don't want that life like that. I'm done. I'm done with that part of this. And so I thought, well, what do I like about my job? I love helping people. I loved, whether they were my direct reports or other people in the company, coming into my office with something and holding space for them and helping them find their own answers and understand how amazing they were. And I thought, well, I'll be a coach. And so I started down that path, and then the pandemic hit.
And how did you roll with that?
So I started coaching some people on the side while I was still doing my other career.
Okay.
Because as a senior leader in that organization, there was no way I was going to walk away at the height of this emergency, as we were trying to figure out how to keep the company even operating and alive,
Right.
and how do we keep people employed. And
Right.
I was co-leading the COVID response team. So I was like, oh, I'm
You were
here
in it.
until
You were in
I'm
it.
here. I'm here. I'm going to have to delay what I want to do because this company meant so much to me, and the people working in it did do too. So I waited until everything seemed to be a little bit more stable. And I left that job at the end of 2021.
Wow. And so that's such an amazing journey. So could you share with us a little bit of what you do now and what your coaching looks like now, and
Sure.
about, burnout, I think we talked a little bit about, and all of that.
So one of the things I really realized through my journey was that what I'd been doing to manage my stress was really just numbing me to the stress. I was using short-term energy relieving mechanisms, and that wasn't building the skills to avoid burnout or to be resilient. So what it took was actually understanding me. It took going inward and knowing myself, knowing what my values were, my beliefs were, my strengths, my triggers, how my emotions and thoughts worked. So my coaching is around that. I help people find their authentic voice, to really, truly accept who they are, know their strengths, know the positive things about them, and hold on to those. And I also make sure that people get back in touch with what their bodies are telling them.
Tell me more about that. I love it.
Part of what my panic attacks were my mind and my body trying to get my attention to make the changes I needed to make. But because I was so out of touch with what was going on with myself, it had to get to here. I had to get underwater before I would do something. As I started to practice mindful meditation and do body scanning and really get in touch with how I was feeling physically, it became apparent that we all have a lot of subtle signals going on, but we spend so much time up here implementing and analyzing and planning and managing and all of those things that we get cut off from them.
Right.
So I help people get in touch with what their body's telling them, because that helps them make better decisions in the moment about what they need to be the best they can be.
Right. Which is so hard for so many people, right? I mean, I always joke, I've talked about this before in the show, where one of my journeys of learning how to listen to myself was when I was really rushed, and this might sound silly, but don't judge me.
Never.
When I would drop my keys and I would erupt inside. And it was always the same when I was running late, doing a million different things, trying to get out the front door. And I would get in the car and just in my mind, just lose it, because I was just so stressed. That was the breaking point. And being able to really start having more compassion of saying, okay, there's a story going on. I'm not listening to myself. I'm freaking out over dropping. I mean, it's not about dropping the keys.
No, no.
And then it's so funny because people always ask, like, so do you still lose your shit over losing your keys? And I'm like, the universe laughs, and every once in a while, I'll just drop my keys and I literally just hold my breath. I'm like, am I okay? I'm okay. I'm just gonna get the keys and we'll be okay. But it just is that reminder of it's and I think sometimes, and maybe you can talk about this, people think it's a band-aid, that it's just like one and done. And there's a lot of resistance to changing from doing the nose to the grindstone and pushing the energy, whatever it is, to doing the opposite and actually slowing down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we live in a society that really pushes toxic productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that when all of a sudden I had this recurring phrase that kept coming up. And now this was nothing my parents ever said to me. I assume it was something at one of my early on minimum wage jobs. But the phrase, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean.
I've heard that. Yes.
Which implies that if you have time to take a break and rest, then you have time to be being productive.
Yes.
And that
and
is
something's wrong with you.
Right. No, rest is a requirement.
Yes. I love it. And when you're working with people, what are some of the, you're living it, you've lived it. So I'm sure when people come in with their list of why it doesn't work, you're like, okay, I sort of wrote the book on this. So let's try that. What are some of the common, I don't want to say resistance, but what are some of the obstacles that you see people have to face in order to start adopting more mindfulness?
Well, you have to let go of the myths. So the common ones I see are that, well, I don't have time to sit for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got too much on my plate. Oh, great. I didn't think I did either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about how you prioritize your time. And when I sat down and really started looking at how I was spending my time, I had extra time.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing to know is you don't have to sit for 20 minutes. I actually start my clients with 1 minute, just 1 minute of concentrated breathing. Reset your nervous system, and we go from there. We figure out, because as soon as you start seeing the benefits and you start feeling them, you naturally want to do more, and you will find the time. So time is the number one myth that I see. The other one is, well, I've tried it and I can't shut my mind down. My mind just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, no, guess what? You were doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind doesn't go blank.
Right.
People who have been doing mindful meditation for years and years and years and years and years and years can get their mind to stay quieter for longer, but it's never blank. Our brain is designed to produce a steady stream of thoughts. It's about learning to not get dragged away by the thought train and stay present. So what you're trying to do is really just notice when you are thinking about something instead of focusing on whatever your anchor is, and gently and kindly bringing your attention back to it. Because the benefits of that is when you're working, something comes up on your screen and you get distracted, and all of a sudden you're thinking about some other task, and 10, 15 minutes ago, oh, shoot, I need to get back to that email I was writing.
Yes.
You learn to stop that from happening,
right?
Because you catch yourself.
Now, that makes me think that one of the things, how like social media is all of a sudden explodes and there's themes, right? And I don't know what I looked on, but I've been seeing the last maybe 3 months an explosion of videos about ADHD. Right. So
yeah,
and I hear a lot of that, with people I know and work with. What are your experiences with ADHD? And because people will say just that my brain biochemically struggles with this. So how would you address that with someone?
Yeah, your brain struggles with it. And the first step is to accept that.
Right.
The concept of radical acceptance is big. And when you accept that your brain is that way, then you can start addressing it. And it may take longer and it may be more challenging and more difficult, but it can help with focus. It can help with limiting distractions. but it is harder. It is harder when you have ADHD. I would say that I am probably undiagnosed ADHD, as I have been going through my journeys. I see the signs, I see what it is in me, and my focus is so much better since I started regularly practicing this type of meditation. Still not perfect, but no one is.
Right. And I loved what you said at the beginning with the research that you've done, which I'm sure blends beautifully into your coaching, is understanding the role of the brain, which I think a lot of people just don't know or don't incorporate. And as you were saying with the message of if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. I see a lot in my work of trying to help people overcome those messages of I have to do it alone.
Oh yeah.
Especially with men, we talk a lot about the man box of I'm supposed to be strong enough to do this. To be a man means I should be able to do this. I shouldn't ask for help. This should be easy. Why do I need this? And the lack of compassion, the harshness, is just heartbreaking. Of we need to get rid of this, that you're supposed to do it on your own, whoever it is.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things I work with with my clients too is practicing self-compassion, because that's the game changer. When you learn to turn your inner critic into your inner guardian, it changes everything.
Right. And how would you do that with someone? I guess, do you ever get what I would call maybe non-believers? Like someone told me I should call you, Kay. I don't really believe in this stuff. Like, I'm sure you've heard it all.
I have. And I'm really upfront that what I do isn't for everyone.
Right.
It is, so kind of the spiritual component of mindfulness is not necessarily part of my coaching practice unless my client is inclined to have it that way. I take mindfulness practices both spiritually and practically. So I can generally find a common ground with someone.
Okay. And as with your background in business and CEOs, where it is so high paced, that must be such a special connection, because what I've experienced with people who are in that level of professionalism, there's so much isolation. Like you're the boss, you're the leader, or you're these expectations, and to be able to connect with you must just be cathartic on its own.
Yeah, I would say that the fact is most of my clients do come from some part of the entertainment industry. And yeah, a lot of it is just knowing that there's someone to talk to that actually understands what they're living with, what they're working with. I create a very safe space for people. And one of the things I got really good at with my late husband's journey with cancer was holding space for people. And so just, being able to hold space for my clients is big for them. It's hard when you're a senior leader in an organization, you have so much going on and so much of it's confidential. And you can't just go talking to people in the office about stuff like you can when you're at a lower level in an organization.
Right.
And so having someone who understands that makes a difference.
Right. And that you speak the language, and then you can also give them the tools to say, this is how you can manage it, so you can proceed and have that fulfillment and that joy of what you're doing, but you don't have to lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
Which I think
I was in a role where I was on call 24/7.
Wow.
If there was an event going on, or if the alarm went off in the box office at 3 a.m, I got a call, right? I know what it's like to be in a situation and a job where you are constantly on, where you just don't have the ability to completely break free. So you have to find the way to break free that works for you.
Right. And it's interesting and I'm sure you had to, with mindfulness, it's about, in my experience, as you're saying, being present and connecting all the parts of you that may have been disconnected along the way. And in my experience in the last couple of years of becoming a coach and offering coaching, one of the aspects that really surprised me in my own journey and healing through coaching was it actually illuminated some of the issues in the therapy field that I didn't realize were affecting me.
Oh,
and
I can see that. Yeah.
and one of them, as we're talking, was, and I've been talking to a lot of therapists about this lately, and I've been hearing a lot about this, where you have to separate yourself so much, and that really comes at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what I do, and I hope I can do it for years. I love helping people in all different levels, but and it's not even the clients that create that. It was actually, for me, it stemmed from my education.
Oh, well, yeah.
Where in grad school it was like you have to be this and black and white, and I just remember this anxiety that was born in me of, I'm not supposed to be Patrick fully. I can be like Patrick light, and that's okay, da da da. But the full Patrick, I just had a conversation with someone about this, of I still struggle sometimes being that full who I want to be and say and let my thoughts go, because in the counseling world you have to go through so many filters, right?
Right.
And coaching, it's been such a gift of letting parts of myself heal, especially with COVID, right? Like, we all it affected us in so many different ways, and telehealth and all of the jazz and the grief and so many different things. And to have another platform to help people and connect and to use skills in a different way has been life-changing for me, and open doors to new people.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine it did.
Right.
Yeah, some of that stuff is the reason that I chose not to pursue becoming a licensed therapist and going the coaching route instead.
Mm-hmm. And what's so nice, I mean, we could talk about this for hours, I'm sure, okay? Like, so you might just have to come back. I hope that's okay. What's interesting is there's so much debate about like coaching versus therapy, right? And I hear a lot of my colleagues like, oh no, coaching, they're trying to be pseudo therapists and all this. And to me, my argument to that is there's good coaches, there's bad coaches, there's good therapists, there's bad therapists. Like, stop putting everyone in one category. And when I started, it actually, oh my gosh, I started in March 2020 with Friday Night Feels.
Oh, wow.
So a little anniversary coming up. I realized that's what inspired me about coaching, because I was meeting all of these amazing coaches from around the world who were doing these amazing things, just like yourself, of reaching people that therapists can't reach, and using their life skills and their experiences in the most beautiful, unique ways to help people that, for example, like I couldn't touch any, like in that way of connect with someone of walking the talk of the industry that you're in, of entertainment. And that to me is why I entered the counseling field, because I wanted to help people not and not put doors. So I think what you're doing is just so beautiful, and opening, being able to come in here and have these conversations is just really inspiring.
Well, I realized I was talking with someone, I guess it was last year, and they were saying, I don't want to look at my past. I don't want to look at my traumas. I don't want to look at those things. So I don't go to therapy because they'll make me look at that stuff. And I don't have any, have any way to figure out what I want to do right now in this moment, unless I look at that stuff. And I was like, you don't have to look at that stuff to change how you engage with the way you think, and how you think about how you think, and the way you engage with your emotions. Like, you don't have to. Right. In some cases, it is very beneficial to re-engage with that, but you don't have to. You can still make forward progress.
Right. Yes. And to give someone the choice, I mean, that's healing right there. Like that, of being able to say, I'm willing to support you in this arena, and I'm going to respect your needs and your wants, and we're going to build the transition. What's the word? Sorry, my brain just went the transaction, or the decision and direction that we want to do together.
Yes, with all my one-on-one clients, it's very bespoke. I have a basic framework that I work with,
Hmm.
but it is absolutely tailored to their unique circumstances, situations, what their goals are. I also go into companies and do well-being workshops
Ooh, I
and
love that.
help them understand and give their employees the information they need to create life-work balance.
Mm. We might have to talk about that too as well. I know we're running a little late on time tonight, but that would be wonderful too, because I mean, when I work for myself, but when I see online, the quiet quitting and all of these changes and the mass, it's overwhelming to read it. I can't imagine being in it, and to
I
be in one of
know.
these companies and or an organization where it just seems like as if it's an eruption
Oh yeah.
every time.
Especially in the tech industry. I have so many friends in the tech industry that I have seen posting on, various platforms. Oh, okay, well, I was let go by text message today, or I was let
Wow.
go by email today. Guess I'm now laid off. I can't, my heart breaks.
Right. If someone comes in and let's say they experience this, like I lost my job or I'm struggling with this, what is the process like to connect with you, and what does the coaching process look like?
Well, they can connect with me in any number of ways, including going on my website where I offer a free 30-minute session to talk
Okay.
about what their goals are, what their reality currently is that may be blocking them from their goals, and give them some steps forward. I do a lot of work with helping people identify their personal strengths and understand how to leverage them to make things easier and more satisfying.
Mhm.
And some of that can lead to helping them figure out, are they in the right career? If they're looking for, I think I want to make a change. I'm not happy where I am. I'm not happy with the work I'm doing. It may be that you're doing work that's outside of what your natural talents and abilities are.
Right.
You're, stretching yourself all the time, pushing yourself to do things or work in ways that don't work.
Right.
And the problem, as I've discovered too, the problem with switching careers or trying to even make that decision is it's a big part of your identity.
Hmm. Yes,
And so
absolutely.
I help my clients see the multifaceted nature of their identity, and that
Mm.
by leaving a job or a career, you don't lose that identity. It's still
Right.
part of you. You're still
Right.
that person and you still have that experience. And so you grieve a little bit for not being in it right
Hmm.
then, but you accept that it's still part of you.
Yes, that's really beautiful. It's like that we're mosaics.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so as we kind of wind down tonight, I always like to ask one more question. Sorry, my mind, I just love this conversation, so it's just bumping all over all over the place, because I just love this. The work you're doing is so great. It's so important, and I think when we've all gone through something like the last 3 years, right, and it's still ongoing, and there's so many ramifications of everything. The more support people have to balance and to learn and to grow, I think the better we'll all be.
Absolutely.
What is one piece of advice, or what is one nugget of wisdom that you could share with people as we wind down tonight that you would like them to walk away with?
Wanting to improve yourself does not mean that you are broken and need to be fixed. You are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You are awesome and perfect exactly how you are, even if that includes panic attacks.
Yes, or dropping your keys and losing your shit.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly. Because
right.
we're all human and we're all having this human experience,
Yes,
and you're not alone.
yes, yes. And you don't need to be.
And
Just
you
reaching
don't
out.
need to be. You don't need to be. Find the person or people that you can feel safe with and trust, and learn to be vulnerable. Learning to be vulnerable oh my God, it relieves so much stress.
Hmm. Yes. And it's not as dangerous as people think it is.
No, no. And actually it can be fun, because when I
Yes.
started learning to be vulnerable, the way I started was when people walking down the hallway in the office and people would say, "Good morning, how you doing?" And I didn't come back with the, "I'm great, how are you?"
You broke the code.
I
You
broke
broke
the
the code.
code. I'd come back with, "Oh, I'm feeling kind of tired today, but I'm doing okay. How are you doing?"
I
It was
love
like,
that. Yeah.
"What, you want to know?"
Wait a minute. What? Autopilot off. Autopilot off. Abort mission. Just going for coffee. And Kate wants to
Exactly.
have a conversation at 8 in the morning. That's awesome. Well, Kate, thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your experiences to Friday Night Feels and wellness and mindfulness. And I hope that you can come back so we can have many more conversations.
Oh, I'd love to.
And
Absolutely.
thank you to everyone that supports Friday Night Feels. And what I'll also do, Kate, is I'll put your contact information in the show notes so that way
Oh,
people
great.
can contact you. And if they have
Awesome.
any questions, they can also reach out to me as well.
Awesome. I love it.
All right. Thank you for coming. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks.